There's something I want every woman listening right now to understand, and it's this. A man should never know exactly what your emotional weak spots are. Not in the early stages. Not until he's earned the privilege. Because those emotional vulnerabilities, they are not little pieces of your heart to just hand over to anyone who shows you a bit of attention. They are leverage. And in the wrong hands, they become weapons. Look, we've all been there. You meet someone, you feel that connection, you want to open up. It feels safe. It feels right. And before you know it, you're sharing stories about your childhood, the heartbreak that shattered you, the trauma you still carry, the insecurities you try to hide from everyone else. And it feels like connection. It feels like trust. But in reality, it's exposure. Premature exposure. And here's the truth nobody talks about. Just because someone listens doesn't mean they care. Just because someone reacts with empathy doesn't mean they're safe. There are people out there who will smile while taking notes, who will nod their head while filing away every one of your emotional triggers, every one of your fears, every single one of your doubts, because they're planning how they'll use them when the power shifts. That moment when you're upset and you break down, he remembers. That time you said you felt not good enough because of something that happened in your past, he remembers. And maybe not now, maybe not next month, but one day when the relationship starts to tilt, when the respect isn't mutual anymore. Those emotional weak spots start showing up in arguments. Suddenly he's not fighting fair. He's fighting with the very pain you shared in confidence. You said your ex made you feel abandoned. Now he starts ghosting you just to watch you panic. You told him you're self-conscious about your looks. He starts joking about them. You said you don't like when people raise their voice because of your past. Now every disagreement ends with him yelling because he knows that's where you crumble. That's not love. That's control. That's someone using your honesty as a manual to break you down from the inside. And before you think this is about being closed off or guarded forever, it's not. Vulnerability is powerful, but only when it's earned. Only when you've seen someone consistently show up, when he's calm when you're overwhelmed, when he doesn't exploit your silence, when he holds your truth with care, not judgment, when he doesn't rush you to spill everything for his comfort. That's when you start sharing. Not because you're afraid, but because you finally feel safe. And the truth is, when a woman hides her emotional weak spots in the beginning, she's not being manipulative, she's being intelligent. She's protecting the deepest parts of herself from someone who hasn't proven yet that he'll protect them too. See, a man will fall for the mystery, not the damage. You don't owe anyone the whole story on the first few pages. In fact, the more self-control you show early on, the more power you hold. Because you're not just giving away access to your soul like it's free content, you're making him earn the right to know you. Not the surface you, not the curated version, the real you, the vulnerable you, the parts of you that still need healing. That's intimacy, and that's rare. But when you skip ahead, when you lead with your pain, when you offer up your emotional underbelly before you even know what kind of man you're dealing with, you're betting everything on the hope that he's emotionally safe, when in reality, you don't even know yet if he's emotionally stable. So let me say it again. Your emotional weak spots are not his to control. Not until he's proven he doesn't want to control you at all. And when you hold them close, when you respect your own emotional boundaries, you don't just protect yourself, you teach him how to respect you too. If a man never learns to value the parts of you he can't see right away, he doesn't deserve to see them later. There's a reason why I tell women this over and over again. Never fully reveal your financial blueprint to a man too soon. And I'm not just talking about your income. I'm talking about your savings, your investments, your long-term financial plans, your debt. The quiet power you hold when you know where your money is, how it moves, and how it grows. That is not something you hand over just because someone is charming, consistent for a few weeks, or says all the right things. That power is sacred. The moment you give someone full access to your financial reality, you shift the balance, and not in a healthy way. Because when a man knows exactly what you've got, exactly how secure or independent you are, you're not just giving him facts, you're giving him psychological leverage. Whether he realizes it or not, whether you realize it or not, you're showing your hand. And once that dynamic is open, the tone of the relationship changes. The respect changes. The control starts to creep in. A man who sees that you've got yourself handled completely without needing him financially either respects the hell out of it, or he starts finding subtle ways to chip at it. And those ways, they don't always show up, obviously. It might be little comments like, "Why do you work so hard?" Or, "You don't need all that money. What are you even doing with it?" Or, "We should just combine everything." At first, it sounds like connection, like partnership, but sometimes it's not that. Sometimes it's a strategy, a slow erosion of your financial autonomy, a push to get you to rely on him more, even when you don't need to. See, some men get uncomfortable when a woman doesn't need them. They've built their entire identity around being the provider. And when they meet a woman who is already standing tall on her own 2 feet, who's paid her dues, built her credit, invested wisely, built a future, that kind of woman intimidates the hell out of them. And instead of rising to meet her, they'll try to find ways to shrink her. And the quickest way to do that is to get inside her finances. And here's where it gets even trickier. Sometimes the man doesn't even realize he's doing it. It's not always some evil mastermind thing, but just because the intention isn't malicious doesn't mean the effect isn't damaging. Because if you start adjusting your financial life based on how much comfort he has with it, if you start dimming your ambition, hiding your success, pretending you're not as independent as you are, you're not in a partnership anymore. You're in a performance. You're in a dynamic where you're shrinking so someone else can feel like they matter. And what ends up happening is women start thinking, well, if I just show him that I trust him with everything, including my money, he'll feel secure. He'll feel like we're a team. No, you're trying to buy emotional safety with financial vulnerability. And that never works. Let him earn your financial truth the same way he earns your emotional truth, through consistency, stability, and proof that he respects your independence. And even then, you still don't need to hand over everything, because what you've built, what you've saved, what you've invested in, that's your protection. That's your freedom. That's the difference between staying in a relationship because you love him and staying because you're financially trapped. They gave him access to accounts. They let him in on every detail of what they had. And when things turned, when the relationship cracked, suddenly their freedom was gone. They had to ask for what they once controlled. They had to fight for what they once owned. And they learned painfully that what you give away too soon often becomes the very thing you have to fight to get back. It's not about being secretive. It's about being strategic, about knowing that your financial independence isn't just a number. It's a boundary. And when a man respects that boundary, when he doesn't feel threatened by it, when he celebrates it, without trying to control it, that's when you can start to open that door. But until then, you protect it. You protect your blueprint. Because once you give someone the map, you also give them the power to reroute your entire direction. There's something deeply personal about the wounds we carry, the heartbreaks, the betrayals, the losses that left us doubting our worth. And I get it. When we meet someone new, especially someone we feel a connection with, we want to share. We want to be understood. We want them to know who we are, where we've been, and what shaped us. But here's the hard truth. Not every man deserves to know your past wounds. Not every man will hold your pain with compassion. And some will wait patiently and weaponize it the moment it suits them. That's why this has to be said. Your pain is not a test of trust. Your trauma isn't proof of intimacy. And if you're sharing your deepest scars with someone just to feel closeness, you're not bonding. You're bleeding in front of someone who hasn't even shown you if he's safe. It starts so innocently. You're having a late night conversation. He asks about your past, about your last relationship. And because the connection feels strong, you start telling him. You talk about the ex who broke you down, the father who abandoned you, the moment you stopped believing you were enough. And maybe he listens. Maybe he even says all the right things. You feel seen, you feel validated, and in that moment, it feels like love. But sometimes that love turns. Not right away, not while everything's good. But wait until there's conflict. Wait until he's insecure. Wait until he's backed into a corner and needs to regain control. That's when it starts. That's when the same man who once comforted you will use those very wounds against you. And it will feel like betrayal because it is. Because you've been wounded. Because it is the ex you told him about. Now you're probably still hung up on him. The insecurity you trusted him with, suddenly he throws it in your face mid-argument. The fears you whispered to him in your most vulnerable moment, now he says, that's why no one stays with you. And you're left sitting there wondering how the hell the same man who said he'd protect your heart just used it as a weapon. That's the danger. When you give someone access to your deepest pain too soon, you're handing over emotional ammunition. And whether they use it on purpose or not, whether it's said in anger or carelessness, the damage is real. The trust fractures. The safety evaporates. And now you're not just dealing with old wounds, you're collecting new ones. You are not obligated to explain your pain to someone just because they ask. You don't owe anyone your darkest chapters as a way to prove that you're honest or open or ready for love. You are allowed to say, I've been through things, but I don't want to talk about them yet. That doesn't make you cold, it makes you wise. Because the people who genuinely care about you won't rush your healing. They won't dig for details. They'll create the kind of space where eventually, when you choose to open up, it's because you feel ready, not because you feel pressured. And when you finally speak, they won't flinch. They won't shift. They'll hold your pain with the same respect they hold your dreams, with gentleness and strength. That's how you know the difference. The right man will never make your vulnerability feel like a liability. He will never throw your past in your face. He will never use your story as leverage to win a fight. Instead, he'll sit with you in silence, listen without fixing, and remind you through action, not just words, that your scars don't scare him. They humble him. So many women rush to explain who they are by unpacking what hurt them, but you don't need to bleed to be seen. You don't need to relive your pain to feel close. Real intimacy isn't built on trauma bonding. It's built on mutual respect, shared values, consistent actions. That's the foundation. And when that foundation is strong, then you can begin to share the parts of your past that still ache, but not a moment before. Your past wounds belong to you. They are not a gift for someone else to examine, dissect, or use. They are sacred, and until a man proves he can handle them with care, he doesn't get access. Because your healing is not his to touch, it's his to earn. One of the biggest mistakes a woman can make in the early stages of getting to know a man is laying out her entire future like a presentation. Her 5-year goals, her dream home, the kind of life she's building, how many kids she wants, the empire she's working toward. And she does it because it feels natural. She's proud of her vision. She's excited. She's hoping he'll be inspired, maybe even align with it. Her vision isn't even in the scope of being in Paya, so her faith in her vision is excited. She's hoping he'll be inspired, maybe even align with it. But here's the part no one wants to say out loud. Not every man deserves a map to your future, especially not the ones who haven't proven they can even handle your present. You don't hand someone a blueprint when they've barely shown up with tools. A man who hasn't built consistency in the day-to-day does not need access to the strategy behind your long game. Because some people, when you show them your entire vision, don't see a path to walk beside you. They see a threat, they see a challenge, they see a level of purpose they can't match. And instead of rising to meet it, they'll try to subtly undermine it. It's not always direct, it's not always hostile, but it shows up in the quiet digs, the passive remarks. Wow, you're really into planning everything, huh? Or, life doesn't always work out the way we want. Or, you're so focused on your future, do you even know how to relax? And at first you might laugh, brush it off. But those comments chip away at you. They make you question your drive, your pace, your ambition. And without realizing it, you start to slow down. You start to explain yourself. You start to ask for permission to dream big. This is what happens when you show your vision to someone who's not ready for the level of commitment and clarity that future demands. They don't know how to support it, so they challenge it. And it's not always malicious. Sometimes it's just insecurity. Some men feel small when they stand next to a woman who knows exactly where she's going. So instead of growing with her, they try to make her feel like she's too much, too intense, too forward-thinking. And you can't let that kind of energy near your mission. Because if you give away your long-term plans too quickly, you give someone the power to influence them before you even know if they belong in that picture. You start reshaping timelines to accommodate someone who hasn't even earned a spot in your calendar. You start adjusting priorities to make him feel included, but inclusion should never come at the cost of your own momentum. You need to watch what a man does in the short term before you talk to him about the long term. Is he reliable? Is he consistent? Does he follow through on small promises? Does he respect your time, your work, your boundaries? Those answers tell you more about his potential than any conversation about the future ever will. If he's showing up for today, maybe you can start letting him into your plans for tomorrow. But until then, those plans are yours. And it's not because you're being secretive or manipulative. It's because you understand the value of what you're building. You understand that your vision is not a casual topic. It's the framework for your life. And it deserves to be protected. The truth is, most men are not intimidated by beauty. They're not even intimidated by success. What they're intimidated by is a woman with direction, A woman who knows who she is and where she's going, because she's not easily impressed. She doesn't need saving, and she certainly isn't looking for someone to complete her. She's building a life so solid, she's only willing to add someone who enhances it. So no, you don't lay out your dream life in the first few weeks. You don't tell him how much you've planned, how far you've come, or how much you're preparing for. You let him experience who you are today. And if he handles that with care, with maturity, with genuine interest, not control, then you begin to slowly unfold what's next. Because a woman with a future doesn't need a man who's impressed. She needs one who's ready. And until he proves that, your vision stays sacred.